ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa's state capture inquiry testimony enters day 2 today. Yesterday, he addressed questions about the party's role in alleged state capture. During that much-anticipated appearance, Ramaphosa acknowledged that members of his party have engaged in some acts of corruption and state capture in recent years. He says there were instances where he was bypassed when he was chair of the deployment committee, but he says it was not driven by ill intent, and that when he was responsible, he immediately notified the committee of his actions. Take a listen.
It has happened when I was chair of the deployment committee, where some deployments were finalized without reference, and one will admit that and accept that. And on those occasions, I would personally go to the president and say, "President, you have shortchanged me and the deployment committee here. We were supposed to be primed and informed about this appointment and that appointment, and it would be, mea culpa." But the appointment had been made and announced. Now, the approach that I have taken now is that it's important to ensure that our structures are involved, because they play a key role in all these processes, so that those types of mishaps don't happen. Now, I would never say that it was intentional. Like in my case, when I did not approach the deployment committee, it was not intentional. It was inadvertent. It was one of those errors that one made, and fortunately one was able to own up to it.
So with us in studio as we continue to unpack the President's testimony yesterday and what we can expect today, senior investigative journalist at Corruption Watch, Valencia Talane, is with me here at the round table, along with political commentator Makosini Mgichwa. To both of you, thanks very much for joining us and for staying with us, indeed, on this second day of the President's testimony. And Valencia, I want to begin with you, because there was so much we expected to hear from the President yesterday, and I want to hone in on the issue of corruption. So he made some comments in his opening statement on corruption and on the ANC's action it's taken to combat corruption. But he's also talked about, in answering questions from the evidence leaders, he's also talked about the fact that corruption is not something that is unique to South Africa. It's something that countries around the world are dealing with. Now, I don't know about you, but many will say that's cold comfort to the people in South Africa who are victim of that corruption.
Not only did he do that with take an international look at it, but he also went back in time to say even before '94 we were dealing with corruption in the country, and he actually characterized it as it was the whole point of the apartheid system, being in power at the time that it was, that corruption had to happen. That's why the ANC then took over. When the ANC took over, it took a developmental agenda and all of that. But again, there isn't anything in that speech that says this is where we went wrong, and how we fix it is how it is going to be up to us, and how South Africans should trust that we as the ANC are going to be able to fix it without necessarily anybody else's help. He put it back out to members of the public in the sense that yes, it's a problem it's an issue. Corruption is an issue to worry about, but it's not something that cannot be necessarily rectified. Yeah.
Makosini, what did you make of how the President dealt with that question?
Look, I think that the President has also to satisfy people inside the ANC, so that
that's the issue,
he doesn't look like he's throwing the party under the bus. It is disingenuous for him to be making reference to corruption that happens in other places in the world and that happened before 1994. We're not interested in that.
Yeah.
The ANC is in power. The ANC must correct that which is wrong. And, it is to minimize the problem of corruption.
They call it whataboutism.
Yeah, exactly. Because corruption in South Africa, its main targets, the people who really suffer as a result of corruption, it's poor people. Rich people are not affected by corruption. Okay, it doesn't affect them directly. Yeah. They have private health care, private security, private education, private everything. If you have problem with Eskom, they've got their solar panels, they've got their generators. If you have got problems with water, they've got their boreholes. Corruption punishes poor people, the very same people that the ANC is supposed to be standing for. You know, the ANC gets its mandate to lead from poor people, but the ANC has become anti-poor. You know, and there's no other way. I'm not being against the ANC, and I'm not, you know, making them a target of unfair criticism. But if you steal food parcels meant for poor people, you are anti-poor, you are anti-black. And that is what the president has to confront. That what has happened in the ANC is that you've had the diminishing political consciousness. You know, what says to you, here is money that I'm supposed to look after as a government official or politician, and let me make sure that the poor people who are still at the, you know, black people are still at the bottom end of the scale. You know, I mean, go to any informal settlement or township, you'll see what I'm talking about. And if you can ignore all that suffering and think only for yourself and your family and steal from these people, you have no business being anywhere near government. You have no business being anywhere near a political party which still purports to be a liberation movement, which purports to be pro-poor. You have no business being there. And we need to hear the president coming out strongly, you know, strongly to say this is what is going to happen, not for him to minimize the problem of corruption that is being inflicted on us as South Africans by his party, the party that he presides over.
But, I mean, Valencia, you can come in there, yeah?
Well, I was going to say that the opportunity here is lost because the platform that he uses to do so is one where a decisive report has to come out at the end of the Commission's term that says, from here on, this is how we recommend as the ANC you deal with people perhaps within your ranks, and how you cross over. When you cross over to, you know, the government side of things, this is how, you know, you need to be able to separate the two powers.
Yeah, absolutely. What I wanted to say to you was that, you know, how much of what the president is saying at the Commission is as an ANC president who is still in the midst of factional battles, who is also preparing for a local government election year. How much can we expect in terms of him coming down hard on the issues that South Africans want him to do so on?
Look, you know, this is one election. The president is really between, you know, the devil and the deep blue sea here, because as the president of the ANC, he's going to be judged on how the ANC performs in the local government elections. And from what I can see, I don't think that the ANC is going to do much better than it did in 2016, for example. I mean, I think they have completely forgotten about Cape Town and other municipalities, and they may lose even more, right? So, and he is going to take the blame from it, from the structures of the ANC. On the other hand, he has to condemn the corruption that is being championed by the very same ANC that he presides over, and he's going to be the same person. He's going to be the campaigner-in-chief of the ANC, saying, elect the ANC, elect all the councillors, you know, in all these places where there are reports of corruption every day. But what we need from him as the president is leadership. That starts with identifying the problem and telling us how you're going to solve it. And you're not going to solve the problem by minimizing it. You're not going to solve the problem by telling us that corruption is everywhere in the world. Then it means you have no intention of dealing with the problem, because in South Africa, corruption is unique. It affects poor people, and you know, it has dropped us from a point of being a leading light in Africa. As South Africa, now we are in the midst of all other countries that are not regarded very much. In fact, there are countries that are beginning to emerge over us as a country, countries such as Ghana in the continent of Africa. And we need guidance and leadership from the president on those issues.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's corruption in a context of the most unequal society in the world.
Which is, and the inequality is just getting wider and wider and wider, and that is happening under the watch of the ANC. There is no way of sugarcoating that.